Right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Gravesham Cabinet, Monday, the 2nd of February. Time now 7:30. I intend to go through a few housekeeping matters before we start the meeting. This meeting has been live streamed via YouTube and recorded. The recording will be uploaded to YouTube within 2 working days, where it will be able to be accessed by anyone. Members, please use the microphones in front of you when talking and ensure you turn your microphone off once you have finished speaking. Another member or officer will not be able to speak if your microphone is still on. Please note that the Council's visual equipment may on some occasions focus on or near the public gallery area, and therefore those in attendance at this meeting may be filmed or recorded. Attendance at this meeting signifies your agreement to this. If as a member of the public you do not wish to be filmed or recorded, please inform a Council staff member in attendance, and we will try to assist where reasonably possible to get you out of the shop. On hearing the fire alarm, we ask all attendees to immediately vacate the building. Please vacate via the nearest fire exit, which is just over there, and make your way to the community square outside the main reception doors at the front of the building. Are you all happy with that? Beautiful, thank you. Right, we then move into the Cabinet itself. First item on the agenda beyond that particular point there was apologies for absence. There are none of them are here tonight, so we're all good. Sign the minutes of the previous meeting. Are they agreed? Yep, thank you. Item 4, declare any interests that members may need to declare an interest in on the agenda. Anything from anyone? No. Thank you. Item 5, to consider moving anything from Part A to Part B or vice versa. Is there anything from anybody? There is an item in Part B, but I'm not proposing to move that into the public arena. It is in part reflected in agenda item 13 in the public part anyway. We all happy with that? Item 6, delegated decisions. Have any cabinet members done anything, I won't say what they shouldn't have done, but none of us are otherwise aware of? No? Fine, thank you. Makes then the first item to discuss tonight is item 7, is review of fees and charges. And Sarah, I believe, that's for you.
Thank you, Chair. So this paper is an information-only report which sets out the outcome of the recent fees and charges annual review. The paper confirms the charging strategy at Appendix 1, which sets out the approach to setting new and revised charges for the forthcoming year. And Appendix 2 sets out the fees and charges dictionary, which contains the proposed fees for the next year alongside the current rates. A summary of the key outcomes of the review is provided for members' information at section 3 of the report and includes a decision to not increase car park charges for the next year and also no changes to planning fees. The revised scale of fee and charges alongside projections of demand for chargeable services are expected to deliver an additional £51,000 income in 2026-2027. Happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thank you. Obviously, the decision not to increase the car park charges is a welcome one, I think, and members and the public, no doubt, will appreciate that. I think it's worthwhile noting as well that the majority of other charges have only gone up by a relatively small amount, if indeed they've gone up at all. Many haven't changed in the way of charges. I think, again, that's welcome at this moment in time. The non-increase on planning fees, I know the government's looking to change the system around planning fees to make them represent more the true cost of the authority. But at the moment, we actually lose money in dealing with planning applications by a significant amount. So I suspect they will change in time to come, relatively short time to come. But apart from that, I think it's a good set of proposals that you're putting forward to us, which are for information and noting. But any other observations from members? No? So we're all happy and content with them? Thank you very much. That then moves us to the General Fund item report on item 8, set out from pages 33 to 270. It's a big report, and you'll see in there all the budget papers, as we refer to them, which go department to department and all the sections as to the ebbs and flows of money coming in and going out. It's something I wish other councils did do, many of which, and particularly Kent County Council, failed to do. but this is a good document, and in the context of the time you've had, and with all the other changes and budget flow money coming in by government, well done. Congratulations to the team, please, for achieving this. With that wee intro, Sarah, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I will make sure that's passed on to the team. This report presents Cabinet with the draft revenue and capital estimates for the General Fund services for 26-27 for consideration by Cabinet before agreeing those proposals to be made to full Council on the 24th of February. The budget has been built on the latest projections of service expenditure and income and includes the outcome from the provisional settlement, which was released on the 17th of December. The provisional settlement was the first in a decade to actually provide us with a multi-year settlement and was also the first under the government's fair funding regime. The settlement set out provisional figures for 26-27 alongside illustrative amounts for 27-28 and 28-29, with the government indicating that any changes to future year funding levels will only be upwards, which helps us in terms of providing much needed certainty over the level of funding that the council can expect to receive for the next 3 years and help with that longer term financial planning that we've been wanting to do for some time. In terms of the fair funding regime, this was intended to increase the transparency of how local government funding is allocated and redistribute resources towards more deprived authorities, many of whom have had their largest cuts in funding since 2010. The Council has seen a positive outcome from the provisional settlement, and due to this and the efforts in delivering against the balance in the budget programme, which is subject to a report later on this agenda, we are now in a position where we can deliver a fully balanced budget for 26-27 and also over the medium-term financial plan period with no further savings required. Furthermore, the Council can start to build back its financial resilience by replenishing its working balances, which had fallen below the recommended level, whilst continuing to maintain specific reserves to respond to known or predicted financial requirements or future liabilities that the Council will need to meet. At a headline level, the revenue budget requirement for 26-27 is 18.5 million. That is based on a budgeted implementation of an increase of council tax of £7.11 or 2.99% in the Gravesham Borough Council element of the tax charge at Band D for 26-27. The financial settlement confirmed that district councils like Gravesham are permitted to increase council tax by up to 3% or £5, whichever is the higher, without triggering the need for a referendum. And the proposed increase of £7.11 is equivalent to an increase of 13 pence a week, with the new Band D charge being £245.07 for that Gravesham element. The report does include a recommendation to allow the budget proposal to be amended in consultation with the leader as a consequence of a number of significant changes that we're working through at the moment in relation to the business rates system. The changes are expected to amend the value of business rates income, which is shown in the funding section of the MTFP, and Section 31 grants paid to the council, which is included in the budget requirement, but we are not expecting to amend the overall net position of the MTFP, but members may notice some changes between those lines when the presentation is made to full council, and as I say, that will be subject to discussion with the leader. In terms of the capital programme for the year is valued at 32.3 million, and a summary of the key activities and projects supported by the budget can be found at paragraph 2.10 of the covering report. Alongside this, it's worth drawing members' attention to the fact that the budget does make provision for the costs that will likely fall to this council in preparing for local government reorganisation in Kent, alongside a special projects reserve intended to provide revenue funding for projects and initiatives supporting and bringing together the wider Gravesham community. The report confirms also that there are no changes proposed to the objectives adopted within the medium-term financial strategy, and Appendix 5 includes my report for member consideration on the robustness of the estimates and the adequacy of reserves and working balances. And that review has confirmed that the estimates presented to members are considered robust, and at the current time, the level of reserves and working balances are adequate on the basis that the Council's medium-term financial outlook and the ability of it to rebuild its general reserve. That was all I was intending to say, Leader, so happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thank you. I think before going into questions, there's a few observations I'd like to make first. I think we have a paper coming later in the agenda referred to as balancing the budget programme, item 9, which I won't go into now, but I think as a basis of this general fund, we need to understand it, what it means. Since 2010, we've been suffering cuts in government support and funding here across many streams. We've had to undertake reviews of services. We've had to lose some services and some cuts along the way of how we wanted to do things. I think we can be proud of the fact that as the council in Kent, we as members across the piece in the council have accepted and done those savings and cuts over the last 10 years. We've saved £10 million. That is not an insignificant amount of money to strip out of your revenue stream in the council. So I think we have done a good job there, and I think all members need to be congratulated on that. I think whilst there is sometimes a desire to blame one side versus the other, this is something that we've all had to get behind, because the reality of no money coming from government means you've got no money to spend, particularly when you're also capped on what you can raise in the way of income. I think when going back prior to those days, I do remember standing here in the council chamber moaning about how little government increase we were getting from government, whatever colour that government was, compared with other areas in the country and other parts of Kent. Since 2010, that particular debate's gone. But I would dwell on that now. If you look at the papers on page 39 on the pack I've got in front of me, we this coming year have got an increase of 7.6% in our baseline funding. And now compared with many authorities, that is a significant increase. And over a period of the next period to 2028-29, our increased income goes up by 15.7%. Now that is a phenomenal increase when you've had 10 years plus of cuts. So obviously I'm very pleased about that. But that has not just happened because the government is being kind to us. It's happened because there's been a lot of work done by officers, and I know our MP in the background, in the various corridors of power with Lauren Sullivan, to go through and explain that in Gravesham, something that people have overlooked here for many, many years, that we have a high level of deprivation in some of our wards that's not been adequately reflected in our funding formula. Now, the government, after many, many promises of reviewing the spending fund formula for councils, and it's been promised effectively for the last 10 years, eventually got on with it and done it. And the Labour government has just done it. That's why we've in large part got the increase in the funding we've now got. And it's probably amongst, if not the highest increase in Kent to reflect the position that we have in the way of got deprivation. Now, the shame for our community is that wasn't reflected 3, 5, 10 years ago, because we could have been in a much better position helping our communities if we'd have had that additional funding over all those years and not just this year. So I'm very pleased and thank all those involved, officers and Lauren, for achieving that remarkable increase for us. It does mean that we are in a position as a council, despite what other people may have thought, audit commissions and others, that we were going to be bumping into the bottom of the trough. Well, we always knew that we were going to be in a difficult place. I'm sure if you went to the various groups, private meetings, and you sat in with the officers briefing them, we all had the briefings of what was potentially going to be the problem and what was going to potentially happen, of having to raise money or change service delivery. We were aware, and that's why over 10 years we've been taking every opportunity to make savings in a way that was sensible and practical for our community, to make those hard choices at a pace that worked well for our community and not one big go. Now, I know some other councils may have to borrow money just to finance their revenue, and they may have to make big cuts. We're fortunate because we've been doing this for a number of years that we don't need to do that. I think we need to be grateful for that point. And everybody involved should be thanked and congratulated and getting to the point we are now at. We are now able to comfortably say we can have a balanced budget for the foreseeable future, providing we do one or two important things. One, we have to understand where the government is assuming our increase in income is in part based on rates going up during all those periods of time. I know there was a phase a number of years ago of trying for 0% increases as a nice sort of fuddy-duddy way of doing it. But the fact is, when you're cutting your bottom line income, it affects not just that year, but subsequent years as well. It also does affect how the government view you for funding, and they could potentially cut our funding accordingly, because if we think need our money, then they may also think we don't need that money. So that money would then disappear at the next review. We are in a place where local government reorganisation is potentially on the horizon. I say potentially because that does depend on whether the government decides to go forward with it or not. Now, I think they will. I hope they will. But for Gravesham, we need to be in a strong place that when we enter into whatever partnership we're in that local government reorganisation, we enter it on the basis as we as a council know how to run a council, we know how financially to run a council, and we can then assist other councils, whoever we're then working with, to understand how they need to sort themselves out to have a good, strong, vibrant council delivering for its community. And that's something that we can demonstrate here. We can do for the next 5-6 years easily with a balanced account and a growing reserve. The other thing we need to be aware of as members is because we have the money, it doesn't mean to say we have to spend the money. It's nice having the money set aside. There are circumstances that come along. There are headwinds that come our way. And in the last few years, we know that we've had a good example of that, homelessness, where we did have a balanced account, we did have a balanced budget we were proud of until about 3-4 years ago. And then that got completely swept out of the way with the homelessness budget from nowhere going to 1.8, 1.9 million a year, additional spending we hadn't planned for because we didn't expect it. Now, unfortunately, that happened. We had to deal with it, and we are dealing with it, and we've put in measures to overcome those problems. And some of them are highlighted in the report 9 you will see later on. But I think we've got to be prepared for that sort of eventuality again. So please don't, as members, assume that all's good in the garden now and forget what could come our way. We just don't know what could happen in our communities. There could be flooding, there could be storms, there could be, who knows? We need to be prepared as a council to act quickly and responsibly and have the funds to do so. Hence why you need to build your reserves back up again. So with those sort of opening comments and thoughts, comments from members, please. Anybody from Shane?
Thanks very much, Chair, and thank you, officers, in particular Sarah and your team, for the work they do, because it always comes out just before Christmas, this settlement, and tends to mean you're responding quite quickly to turn this around for us, and it's welcomed, and thank you. Chair, to build on a couple of your points, for many years we've argued that austerity should end for local authorities, given how many services, whether it's this tier, the upper tier unitaries, that is delivered for local residents on and the services that they absolutely rely on. So it was really a false economy by continuing to cut local authorities and local government over these many years. So I'm delighted that it seems that finally, after much rhetoric of austerity being over, it does seem to be over with the increase, not just this year, but for subsequent years as well. And it's worth noting one point, Chair, that we always have to tease out because, well, until LGR happens, if it happens, a majority of council tax, 75%, goes to the upper tier authority here in Gravesham. Gravesham Borough Council retain 10% of that total council tax bill, and the majority of our properties aren't actually Band D. The majority of them, over 50%, are Band A to C, building on the points you've made about deprivation and smaller intake of revenue. So that figure that's quoted of £7.11 for the year, it is to be noted, actually is less for the vast majority of our residents, and so makes it a couple of £100 a year or just over that, for every service the Gravesham Borough Council offers its residents. Most of that money goes to Kent. Most of it goes to adult social care. Most of it goes towards the highways. Most of it goes, despite that, Chair, it's worth noting that they have also seen an increase as well, because deprivation isn't reserved to Gravesham. Deprivation happens around Kent. So KCC have seen a huge increase as well to their budget. Multi-million pounds, which we look forward to them spending on the potholes and the social care that was duly promised to residents. It has to be reflected that we've seen so many years of dealing with some of those headwinds you've mentioned, temporary accommodation and COVID in particular. That's what reserves are for, Chair. And we have spent those reserves to deal with those things. And it's a tribute we didn't reach zero, or we didn't go into the negative in regards to this, but this is now allowing us to build back their resilience. And to once again, Chair, as has been highlighted by the 151 officer, to have a completely balanced position over the medium-term financial plan, something that some authorities haven't done for a considerable period of time or are not completely able to do. All debt that this council holds is serviced. It is well managed and well done, and it's important that we recognise that moving forward. And on top of that, Chair, continue to deliver with the range of services that have been promised to residents and are featured in this report as well. So I look forward to it going to the budget meeting and moving forward for the long term.
The next one I saw was Deborah, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's good to actually mirror what Shane had said, that this is a very positive outlook actually for our borough, and especially as we can continue to maintain the services and the delivery of services to the residents, along with continuing to provide assistance to businesses and individuals as needed. So I think it's a really good job, and well done to the team and to everyone that has pulled together to actually balance the budget and be a very positive outcome for the borough moving forward. That's just my comments. Thank you.
Anybody else? Rena.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank Sarah and her team, because you've put a really, I think, really clear and robust paper together. It's really good that you've done the planning as well. It's really clear from the paper. And I think it's not necessarily fortune, but it's hard work that's gone into this over a long period of time, and very prudent, which I think is very, at this point in time, it's very good to see. So thank you to you and your team. And I know it's a massive amount of work that's gone into this. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Jinder.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo what my colleagues mentioned. Actually, it's very healthy budget, and it's very busy time after Christmas. All this finance team come here and trying to sort the budget out. I'm sure they had a busy time. I just want to say thank you to Sarah and the team. Well done. Thank you.
We all happy? Any other comments? No? Can I just say that obviously this will go to full council for ratification. This will be the recommendation from Cabinet. Full council's on the 24th of February, and the public are more than able to come or see it on YouTube if you wish. Hopefully it will be an interesting, positive meeting. Can I just make the reminder to everybody now, which I said last year and the year before, if any group or individual have any thoughts or comments that they wanted to add into it, or any challenges they want to make that they want to discuss with me in advance, the door's open for you to come have a chat. And if within reason we can accommodate you, then we will. But this is a budget we've got to be remembering will lead us into local government review. We can't waste the money. We've got to be very thoughtful about it. But we need to represent all our community. So it's best to do it in partnership than opposition. But this is the budget that we're putting through. But just a gentle reminder to all in attendance. Okay, so can we accept that tonight and note that we'll be putting it through a full council? Agreed? Thank you. That then takes us to the next item on the agenda, which we slightly touched on, the balancing the budget programme. Sarah, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this information-only report provides members with an overview of the extensive programme of activity which has already been touched on this evening, delivered under the Balancing the Budget programme since 2020, and reflects on the £10.1 million worth of base budget reductions this council has delivered since 2016. Given the impact of the council's activity and the provisional local government finance settlement, which has already been discussed this evening, the report concludes that whilst the council may not be required to deliver any further savings for the foreseeable future based on what we currently know, as we know from recent experience, external events outside of our control can alter the council's financial position very quickly. And for that reason, and as explained by the leader, strong financial governance will continue to be a cornerstone of the council's arrangements to ensure that it can respond to events and operate within its available resources to provide the services that the residents rely on. And as part of this, the council will refocus its attention on particular areas of volatility in its operations, alongside progressing actions already underway to improve the economy, efficiency and effectiveness of the service it provides. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Obviously, thank you for the report and, as I say, the work that's been done over a number of years. I think one thing we also need to remember is when we're looking at where we've changed services and made savings, in part that is due to looking at work in a different way, being more effective in how we're doing it and changing what we deliver, because what was right 15, 20 years ago isn't necessarily right today. And also today we have things which I'm getting on board with, like AI, that really does improve the speed of production, the speed of work. And we need to reflect that in our efficiency of how we work. And that can bring through savings in itself. So we are in a good place. We need to maintain that position. I am mindful that last year, when we did say that we had a plan, people did say, in audiences outside this room, I've got to say, that they didn't understand what the plan was. Perhaps they weren't truly of a financial background, some of those people. But it was there, it was in the papers. We did indicate what we were trying to do, and we delivered it. And I think the fact is we're now in a good place because of it, to build from that going forward. So can we note the report? Shane.
Just want to draw something out in this report, Chair, that is quite in the introduction. It's 1.3 on page 272, which talks about the net budget requirement back in 2010. It was 14.5 million. Just if we had got just inflation every single year, this council would be 24.6 million we could be spending on local residents. We just heard the budget requirement is 18.5 million, thanks to the increase that was got. Last year it was 16.3. To do that, so that's several £1 million that we could have every single year spent on residents. That's the long term. And you go back to your point earlier, Chair, about saying that those cuts have not just that in-year cost, but they have subsequent year costs. There's several £1 million each and every year that could have been spent on residents that was not, if it had only just gone up by inflation. So I think it does us well to remember that particular paragraph in particular when we're looking at the balancing the budget and savings, not just what's been done here, it's not been this year or the previous years, but there's a reoccurring every single year cost to austerity that has then meant that some of these services have not been able to be delivered based on that. So it's something to remind ourselves when we're looking at the budget going forward. You've got to look at the history and learn from it.
Can we know the report? Are we happy with that? Thank you. That then takes us to the final finance report, which is housing revenue, I believe. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, last one from me this evening, you'll be glad to hear. This report presents Cabinet with the draft revenue and capital estimates for the housing revenue account for 26-27 and informs of the determination of the level of rent and service charges for the year. I do have to just make a quick apology to Cabinet, because there is a line missing from the very start of the recommendation, which is very important, in the fact that the recommendations contained within the report this evening are for Cabinet to recommend to full council. So again, this will be debated at the full council meeting on the 24th of February. And apologies for that omission, but we'll make sure that's corrected within the minutes, assuming Chair and members, you're happy to do that. So the budget for 26-27 for the housing revenue account reflects a budget position which is balanced, with budgeted income of 38.1 million being meeting fully the planned expenditure for the year, and no savings required to support that position. Working balances for the housing revenue account at the end of the year will remain at 3 million, that being the minimum level of working balances as determined by the medium-term financial strategy. Government policy expects annual rent increases that are for both social and affordable rent of up to CPI plus 1%, with CPI being measured at September 2025. At that point, CPI stood at 3.8%. Therefore, the increase in rents is proposed to be 4.8% for 26-27. That will lead to the authority's average weekly social rent being £117.18 in 26-27, compared to £112.10, which it is currently. And the average affordable rent will increase to £211.19, compared to the £198.92 per week within the current financial year. Average weekly service charges for 26-27 will be £5.06, which are currently £4.85. And the housing capital programme for the year is estimated at £34.4 million. And that programme will continue to focus on maintaining the council's housing stock and work to improve efficiency and sustainability, alongside activity to increase the supply of social housing in the borough. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Again, another very good report in setting out we have a balanced budget again in the housing. We have to do that, and it's one thing we forget to mention on a regular basis is the housing revenue account is a ring-fenced account. It is there, paid for, set up for, and pays out to housing tenants. It is not a general fund item. It can't be subsidised by the general fund. So everything we do within that line is paid for by the tenants themselves. So when there's a big demand for new council housing, and we all support that, that's effectively paid for by the tenants themselves. As a general fund, we don't put money in. We might be able to get grants towards it, but it's always the general fund meeting those costs, which is something that we sometimes forget. Now, because of that, we have to increase the rents. The government's also been very clear that the increase in rents is a preset requirement to move us towards affordable rents, because social rents are significantly lower than affordable rents on the whole. Now, them again may not be something that we like, but the good thing this council is doing, and many others, I've got to say, is supporting those in the lowest income brackets with financial aid and support where they are really in desperate need. And we can facilitate help. So if anybody is in trouble with paying their rent, they need to contact this council and we will help and assist where we can. That being said, if people choose not to pay their rent, we will still collect their rent because the old adage of can't pay, won't pay doesn't work here. If you're due to pay the rent and you can pay the rent, you will. But if you need help, we are there to help you and support you. And I think that's an important message that we need to sort of tailor in with the report. As far as your missing fifth recommendation, we obviously will take that on board and agree that. So I think it's only right this is a debate and agreement of full council, not just of cabinet. As tempting as it is for me to say cabinet, we will do it all. We'll have to recommend and recognise that we work in a democratic society and we have a full council to achieve that and work with that. And it gives us an opportunity to listen outside other people's opinions and not just mine. As much as I may or may not always agree, we will take it to full council. So there is going to be an appropriately worded fifth recommendation. So if cabinet members can accept that, I'm sure you will sort out the right wording afterwards, and we're agreeing. Any comments, please? Karina?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just, in terms of the national considerations, either the AWAB's law, the damp and mould, there's decent homes, there's been lots of like fire regulation, new regs in, etc. I'm really proud of the housing team, the work they've done to help 5.4 5,000 units that we have in this borough, there are 5,500 homes for people, 1,000 homes for people. And it's really important that the quality and the standards being maintained, and also within the budget, and being able to keep a balanced budget. So I'd just like to again thank your team, but also thank the housing team for all the work they've done. And they've been absolutely fantastic with all the changes and regs and other things that have happened outside our control. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Karina. Anything else from anyone? We're happy to accept the recommendations with the unseen item 5 added in. It's there in that lemon invisible wing, I'm sure, but can we agree that? Yeah, thank you. That then takes us to the next item on the agenda, item 10, the local plan. Tom, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the paper as read. In summary, this paper concerns the draft local plan. The local plan is a framework to guide sustainable growth and development from now to 2042. As indicated at the outset of the draft document, a brownfield first, infrastructure first, adoption first approach is taken. This paper concerns the Regulation 19 stage of the plan following stage 18, which occurred in 2018-2020. Information from Regulation 18 can be found on the Council's website. The local plan document summary pack appended is considered draft, and the recommendation delegates to the Director of Environment to make final amends in consultation with the leader and the Cabinet member for planning. If approved and subject to scrutiny, the document and accompanying information will go to consultation for 6 weeks. At Regulation 19 stage, representations will be made on the legal soundness of the plan. A draft form is included in the pack, but the website, which is also mentioned in the pack as well, will include reference to the range of ways that stakeholders can take part. The vision and strategic objectives for the plan have been set by key members. Holistic vision is proposed, which I'm sure members will cover tonight. The plan responds to mandated housing targets set by government, maximising brownfield delivery with development planned in the towns of Gravesend and Northfleet, supported by strategic Greenbelt release. The plan is accompanied by a range of specialist reports, which are listed in the appendices. These reports will be available on the consultation portal alongside the document. A draft summary document is also included in the reports pack, which provides an overview of the draft document before you this evening. To reiterate, the document is shared in draft, and the recommendation delegates to the Director of Environment to make final amends in consultation with the leader and the Cabinet member for planning. And with that, Chair, happy to pass back to you to take any questions.
Thank you. Obviously, I'll make a few observations before we kick off. But there is also, I've got a third recommendation I'm adding into the recommendations before you tonight. This one's not written in lemon ink, but I can read it out to you. And it will be added in as item 3, and I'll be seeking all 3 recommendations to be approved. The third one will be delegated authority provided to the Director of Environment in consultation with the leader and Cabinet member for planning to collate outcome of the Regulation 19 consultation, agree summary of key issues and summary of proposed modifications, and to submit the draft plan to the Secretary of State for examination. Now, that will be the third recommendation in the report. Now, moving to what we're doing here tonight, this is a plan that's been coming together over effectively 12 years. And it's been delayed in large part because we've had various governments in, various different strategies from government, different requirements from government, and we've had to keep reflecting in our local plan all those changes. We have a duty, a legal duty to replace this every 5 years. And we're not way behind that now. So we've got to get on doing this. The reason why I'm really keen to get this progressed is that I am aware that local government changes are coming. The good positive thing is if we have a plan in place a number of things come away and fall in place behind that. One, we have a position in Gravesham area going into any new unitary authority where they will use this current plan to determine what happens in this area. So we'll be separate to other parts of that greater unitary area because they will use this as their basis in planning, whilst they redo their whole local plan going forward for the bigger, wider area. And that will also reflect any demands and requirements come down from an elected mayor if we were to have one of them as well. So it gives us that window of opportunity to safeguard what is important to us here in Gravesham. So it's important we do this. The other thing is that I am very aware that we have interest in land in Gravesham from a whole bank of developers who are quite keen to build on every single blade, both in the urban area and rural area. And the only way really we're going to get any protection from that onslaught is to have Reg 19, what we got here before us, put in place. It is not the local plan. It has to go through a Secretary of State's inspector and then has to be adopted by full council. But the fact that it's there means that we can ask our planning officers to bear this in mind, and it has higher levels of consideration than the plan that we currently have in place that is now 12 years old. Unfortunately, I can remember the two plans before that. It goes back to about 94, and it's to have only 3 plans and be party to only creating 3 plans in the entire period I've been on the council isn't something I'm particularly proud of. But this plan is something that it means, in my mind, we've got some safeguards because everybody's looking at Gravesham to build, and we've got to make sure we protect what's important to us here in Gravesham. So it is important to get this thing through. There's no merit in trying to delay it. It may not be perfect. I've never seen any local plan in any area, and I watched them through various parts of the country that have had all the public up in arms saying how marvellous it is. Why can't we do this even more? It doesn't happen because the nature of communities, people don't want it changing, but they want it changing to provide more housing for the people they know and they're friendly with. Unfortunately, local plans have to be bigger than that and go over a longer period than that, and that's what this plan does. So hopefully we can all get behind it and support it with that 3rd recommendation in there as well. Any comments? Anybody? Shane.
Thank you very much, Chair. As you've already said, this local plan is many things. It is worth noting it is a legal requirement under the Town and Country Planning Act, the regulations, the Planning Compulsory Purchase Act, and the MPPF, of which it is done. To prove I've read my MPPF, this is what my version looks like, very tea-stained and very chaotic, because I have to regularly refer to it as interesting suggestions keep coming forward left, right and centre, and that has guided me throughout to ensure that some nonsense has not made it through. It is a strategic vision, but as you've said, it is about something that protects Gravesham as well as ensures it meets the needs of the future. It isn't simply a housing development plan, Chair. It's actually about the land that's required for sports and leisure, for arts, for open spaces, for parks, schools, for water, for energy, for burial grounds. We are in desperate need of a new cemetery, Chair, and we need to make sure we have catered for that, and it is part of this. We're also a borough that's open for business, and we've made sure that there's at least a start of a 10 in this document about how we can support the ever needing land for business and to ensure that we can meet those requirements along with the evidence. But we have made sure there's some key priorities in there. Brownfield first is, as the director has said, is important. We have taken every brownfield site we can and made sure that that is the priority for this borough, to make sure we develop on all of those things. It's worth noting that those that are permission granted already are down to viability concerns, not the viability concerns of this authority, but certainly the viability concerns of developers, but we have included them and we want them to come forward. We want to make sure that in ensuring that the fleaseholder scandal is ended, we can adopt those land and make sure that there isn't a sort of two-tier element to this. But also, Chair, that make sure we allocate the housing needs that are for the housing needs of this borough, not for the housing needs of anybody else. And the evidence packs that are underneath this are about Gravesham's housing needs, Gravesham's affordability housing needs, for example, and not for anyone else's housing needs. There are some additional points that we can go through and come up. Chair, there are some safeguards that are required, and how we can make sure we can word them into the draft to make sure that this is where Gravesham's needs, and how we make sure that in terms of policy that when developers come to Gravesham, they realise that this is a borough full of historical importance, and that their profit doesn't override a sort of the abolition of historical artifacts, for example. We need to make sure that there is a balance between that and we preserve and protect our history and identity, at the same time meeting those housing needs and the needs of residents that do exist, and we constantly hear that people need, especially in terms of affordable homes, social homes, and various types, tenures, and making sure they are in good design as well, pertinent to the design code. We need to make sure, Chair, that infrastructure is there, and this gives that clear steer that development must contribute to that infrastructure, and recognising that we have to do this together as a partnership. One final thing to note, Chair, is that this is a document that allocates land for development that all land has been offered up for development. There's a few myth-busting things that need to take place, Chair. I'm sure working with the wonderful Mr. Rayfield from Communications, we'll be able to do so. Apparently, we've compulsory purchased all this land, for example, Chair, which, given we've just talked about the budget and the capital funding for it, is a substantial amount of land. We haven't compulsory purchased this land, and we aren't building it all out. Every single piece of land that's in here has been offered by the relevant landowner. There's at least one landowner, Chair, that he's insisted that we've apparently press ganged this gentleman into selling his land. I'm very tempted at this stage to almost release the emails where it's actually been the opposite way round, and it's been begged to be taken. So myths are abound in this. The best thing, though, is we can, with the evidence packs between us, show that this is all what has been required, all the reports that sit underneath this, and it is intense, as you have rightly said, Chair. The MPPF requires quite a lot of evidence for this. A few of them are on this desk at the moment, in case of any questions. But while it isn't perfect, as you rightly say, it has built on the Regulation 18 consultations, which were listening to residents, listening to those that want to set up business in this borough. So this is built on previous administration's work as well, and I thank them for that. As we build towards Reg 20, as well as Reg 19, as you've rightly said in your recommendations. I'll leave it there, Chair.
Thank you. Any other observations, comments? Karina.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question, really. I just wanted to clarify the on page 52 and 53, the highlighted yellow bits, which are the spatial objectives further to member consideration. Are they linking the strategic objectives in the corporate plan with the spatial context, please? That's my question. And I have a second tiny question. Riparian, I don't know what that word means. Thank you.
Tom?
Thank you, Chair, and for you. So the spatial objectives build on the strategic objectives. They're highlighted because that's a key point in the document that we've still got to go through in the final stage of consultation. And riparian effectively means river.
Any other observations? No? Right, with the third recommendation included, are we happy to accept the recommendation set out in the report? The 2 plus the 1, yeah? I've got the third one in writing now. We all happy? Agreed? Thank you. Right, that then takes us to the next item on the agenda, which is item 12. That's the minutes of the Gravesham Joint Transport Board held on the 26th of November. Was there anything there particular, Deborah?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to note on the minutes, item 37.1, the Galley Hill landslip collapse road in Swanscombe. Although it's not part of our borough, it does link two boroughs and is a very important road link. I will be raising the issue with Kent County Council Highways on the fact that they are earmarking a large sum of money to build a tunnel at Bluewater and put monies into that versus putting monies into Galley Hill Road. So that's my one comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? No. Thank you, and good luck with that one, with Ken. I know many other people have tried, but got nowhere, so best wishes. Item 13 on the agenda is the purchase of 34 flats at Harbour Village, part 3 of their development. Can I refer members to part B as well, which is the private part of the agenda pack? Whilst I'm happy to discuss under 13 the items so people understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, please do not refer to any financial details or information, but that will be part B. And when we get to part B, we will make the final decision on whether we are going forward with it or not, being informed of the financial position when we get there. And that will be in private, which is the normal way these things are dealt with. So subject to that requirement or debate, I open up the question around item 13. If I feel that anybody wanders into a part B element of the discussion, forgive me, I will shut you down pretty quick, because I don't want us all breach any requirements of confidentiality. Are you all happy with that? Thank you. Who's introducing this? Tom, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'll take the paper as read. To summarise, this paper seeks Cabinet approval for the acquisition of 34 homes for affordable rent in Northfleet. This will grow the Council's housing stock and support the Council's housing development strategy and pipeline. There is a clear corporate plan commitment to deliver an ambitious programme of building. The Council's housing strategy suggests a range of options for delivery, including direct delivery, and we're doing a number of schemes like that at the moment, working with partners and purchase and acquisition. This paper looks at the purchase of 34 homes from developer Bellway, 18 one-beds, 16 two-beds for affordable rent. Homes meet expected standards, and there is a high amount of dual aspect homes, basically views in both or one or two directions. In terms of programme, the effective start on site is programmed for February 26, so this month, with practical completion and the letting of homes in the spring of 27. The site is in Northfleet in the Ebbsfleet Development Corporation planning area, but importantly within Gravesham Borough Council boundary. The team will be supported by a specialist team to advise on quality, costs and legals, including on the agreement with the developer. If we don't step in here, it's likely the developer will look to secure a different type of affordable housing. So it is an opportunity to safeguard genuine affordable homes. And the development team have support further information on service charges, which is included and referenced in the report, and further appraisal of these charges and legal advice and commercial aspects are covered further in Part B. With that, Chair, happy to hand back to you, and Paul and I are here and endeavour to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's fair to say that this is a good opportunity for the council to step in and buy units for our housing revenue account for people on our waiting list. We have a lot of people in need of housing in Gravesham, and when this is combined with all the other housing we're building and buying, it's actually a small part to addressing some of those needs, but we need to do every step we can to get there. It's something that when we get to Part B, we will talk about the numbers financially, but I think it will be a good thing to be doing. It's something that we as a borough have spent a lot of time trying to balance the accounts so we can improve and get more council accommodation and build more. But as I referred to earlier, this is all paid for by the tenants. So we've got to be very mindful of it's got to stack up and it's got to pay back out of their account. That being said, Karina, you're the housing lead for us.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm just really happy that we're going to make a bid for these 2 and 1 bedroom flats, because on our housing register, Chair, as you probably know, they're in the highest demand at the moment, and there are obviously a lot of people who are on the register who really want to get into a 1-bed flat or a 2-bed flat. Also linked to what we said earlier regarding Sarah's team, the housing services are doing a lot of innovative and agile work, and this is a small piece of the picture which will provide, as Councillor Shane earlier on said, provide homes for people in Gravesham who live in Gravesham and want to stay in Gravesham. So I'm very pleased with it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if the director or the officers could just further develop for the Cabinet's assurance on the safeguards on what we long know is the leaseholder scandal and the service charge scandals that we constantly see in developments up and down the land. It's almost become a little bit of a revenue stream for some developers now. For unadopted land, and that it does touch on sort of page 366 some of that safeguards, and obviously we want to protect and safeguard our residents. So can anyone comment and just offer assurances to make sure those safeguards are in place and that they can't, after any transaction is made, just decide unilaterally we fancy tripling, quadrupling the price or causing issues for financial viability of the scheme later down the line.
Before you answer, Tom, can I just remind you, please, that we're dealing with the financial aspects in Part B. Whilst it's legitimate to talk about that in part openly, we can't go into the details of how the mechanics of it or the financial controls around it. Otherwise, it would be in breach of the confidentiality note. I don't want you falling foul with that when members don't.
Thank you, Chair. I will try to cover this simply now, but can cover it further in Part B. For tenants, we're proposing affordable rents. So that's the first point to say. And in terms of the wider agreement, we will seek legal protections around that, around points around growth. Thank you.
I'm sure we will come back to it in more debate in Part B. Anything else from anyone? No? Can we all note the report for this particular one then, please? My screen's gone dead on me, but there you go. We all happy? We agreed? I'll go back to the front of this paper agenda. The next item on the agenda is item 14, which is any other business by region special circumstances. There's been nothing been brought to me, so there's therefore nothing under that heading. Item 15 is to ask if there are members of the public here under the section 108 of the Local Government Act. The public are now excluded. So thank you very much for coming tonight. I'm pleased that you did. Hopefully you had an interesting time. And those on YouTube as well will be terminated now, as we'll be moving into Part B of the agenda.